This week, we ask the question, can I be a better Mason? The answer might surprise you, especially in the way we have to look at the question itself. It's always said that there's no better Mason than a third-degree Mason. But is that true? We'll read an article from 1977 that addresses just that, and a little more. Then we'll take a look at the roots of Freemasonry. How far back do they go? Can they be connected to the Persians? All this and more. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to Whence Came You, a Masonic podcast featuring research papers and discussions related to Freemasonry. Here's your host, Brother Robert Johnson.
Welcome back to the show. This is episode number 692. I want to thank our contributors, fellows, producers, and legacy partners of the WCY podcast. These are the folks who make this show possible every single week of the year, and without you, we can't do it. We've been doing it since 2011 with your help and assistance. And so if you're out there and you're curious, how can I help be a part of this? How can I help bring quality, trusted Masonic education to all those interested in the royal art? Head on over to wcypodcast.com. Click on support the show and check out the various options. We do them through PayPal or Patreon. There are tier levels that you get different things for your support. And if none of that suits you, you can always do a one-time gift to the show as well. Whether it's $1 or $2, whatever it is, it all goes right back into the production of this show. And as always, we have a shop as well as other projects that all raise money for these things. So, with all that, once more, thank you all for any considerations. On the 15th, I will be presenting in Enlightenment Lodge number 198 in Colorado, a traditional observance type lodge. So you can bet your bottom dollar we'll be talking about something more philosophical. We're still nailing the topic down. And then on December 13th, I will be at the Valley of Columbus. We'll be doing a talk on the Tetragrammaton, which is a talk that explores the entire concept of the lost word, what the divine secret is, its hidden history in countless religions, and we'll try to bridge the gap between myth and science. It's a lot of fun. Now, let's get into this week's education. I want to start off by reading a piece from the New Age magazine, June 1977. Recently, I was going through a number of different presentations that I give, and one of them is essentially about what Masonry does for us after we become initiated. The name of that talk is called What Really Changed After Initiation, and it's a brief reading and education followed by a group discussion or a roundtable where we all discuss what we feel has changed within us after those titular moments in Freemasonry. I was flipping through this particular issue, and on page 30, I came across an article called What Better Mason? Or maybe it's What Better Mason? And it's by Dr. Noel Avon Wilson, 32nd degree, out of Jefferson City, Missouri. And I'd like to read that for you now because I think he's got an excellent piece here that explores that question. What changed after initiation? Are you a better man? Let's check this out. For some years, I have been challenged by a question that will not go away. It lingers like a mischievous old friend who enjoys the stimulus of impertinence. To know what I mean, ask yourself, what better Mason am I? It is a fitting sequel to our Sovereign Grand Commander's inquiry, what is the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry? You may have heard it said many times, as I have, that when one becomes a Master Mason, he is as much a Mason as he ever can be. And while this oft-confirmed statement keeps us properly humble, it does not quiet the goading speculation that a Mason can become a better one. When we exhort a Master Mason to become a candidate for the advanced degrees, he might very well answer, have I not met the challenge as an entered apprentice as to my belief in God? Did I not demonstrate as a fellowcraft that I am disposed to labor long and diligently at the building of the temple, no matter how humble the task assigned to me? Did I not perceive through the tragic experience of our Grand Master to emerge from the darkness and be raised to the sublime degree of a Master Mason? We would do well to answer with an affirmative, while at the same time pointing out that these symbolic degrees are continuing portals through which one may pass, so as to make one's journey more direct and more rewarding. In the lessons that fit him, to work and travel, he is confronted with death, that foe most touted to make cowards of us all, and finds that God has fashioned a shield and breastplate with which to brave the worst that life may thrust at him. Thus, I, a journalist and professor of journalism, long accustomed to associating my destiny with conflicts of power, wealth, and social status, seek the quiet company of Masons. I am comforted by the serenity of men, certain and unafraid of their destiny. They are, as I am, fixed upon a light that comes from the east. It is the light of God finding its way into the affairs of men. Can we improve upon this by asking, what better Mason am I? I think so, and this is why. Speculative Masonry is a craft wherein a man builds throughout his lifetime a temple to house his thoughts. As he grows in intellect, the ceilings and domes he vaults into the heavens repeatedly becomes inadequate. He must repeatedly make them more vast until he can at last say, "This indeed is the realm of heaven, and this is the house not made with hands." The materials for so great an edifice must come from the symbols we find along the way. It is what we know about symbols and how we practice the use of them that determine how stately and magnificent are the mansions that we build. Symbols are of one kind, but one thing is true of all. They are configurations of the world reflecting from the light that God shines into our lives. And all symbols can be divided into two classes. The one class is arbitrary symbols, those configurations which bear no characteristics of the thing represented. They are the little allusions to entities and relationships that fill the chinks and crannies of our meaning and bind into great and worthy structures, the fragments of our thought. Then there is that other, more exciting class of concentration symbols, the ones that are loaded with implications about the things we value highly. These are the ones that summon fear, anger, loathing on the one hand, or hope, affection, and the thrill of eternal glory on the other. What better Mason am I? I am better by the symbols added for my better perception of the world and the universe. In the Scottish Rite, there is the impetus to reach out for every symbolic manifestation of God's light and of man's effort to reflect it. Hence my proposal to you who would know what it means to be a Scottish Rite Mason is this. Take stock at the close of each day as to what better Mason you are. Has some emotion quickening experience been added to one or more of the many symbols of the Scottish Rite? Or has a new configuration been added to the edifice of intellect, capable of holding together great areas of truth for all time? If you can say yes to either question, you can count the day as gain. Again, I love this. It gives me a moment, and I think back at something John Ruark has often said on the round table, which is that if you can be just 1% better today than you were yesterday, this is a gain. And in this same way, I think the idea of reflecting on the lessons in Masonry each day, if we can learn a little something about ourselves that give us some insight into exactly how we can do something perhaps a little differently, a little better, then each day is a gain, especially in terms of men becoming better men and Masons becoming greater and better Masons. It's a very simple concept, and yet what Dr. Noel Wilson is saying here is so true. We constantly say the third degree, we don't get any better. It's as brotherly as you get. It's as Masonic as it is. It doesn't get any better, right? But that's that humble nature of how we act. Do we still yet become better as Masons? It's like a hidden tier. But I hope you enjoyed this piece, and I invite any comments or thoughts on the piece that you may have. All right. Next up, I wanted to read a very interesting article as it relates to the history of Freemasonry and, of course, from an esoteric source. This comes from the Universal Freemasonry website. It is by Brother Axel Savari. This was published on October 1st, 2025, so about 25 days ago. And this article is called The Persian Magi and the Roots of Freemasonry. Long before the Temple of Solomon rose in Jerusalem, a priesthood in ancient Persia tended eternal flames and read the heavens as divine scripture. These were the Magi, guardians of Asha, cosmic order whose doctrines of light and darkness, celestial law, and sacred architecture shaped the spiritual DNA of later civilizations. Their influence flowed through Judaism, Christianity, and classical philosophy, leaving indelible marks on the symbols and initiatory ideals of Freemasonry itself. Could the craft's blazing star, twin pillars, and temple symbolism be far older than we think? Reaching back to the fire altars of the first light, we begin. Long before the chisel struck the stone at Solomon's temple, before the Doric columns rose on the Acropolis, before Rome had even dreamt its empire, there existed upon the Iranian plateau a priesthood whose vision encompassed heaven and earth alike. They called themselves the Magavan, or bearers of the sacred knowledge, but history knows them as the Magi. These were not mere priests tending hearth altars, nor village astrologers plying a trade of omens. They were custodians of cosmic order, Asha, interpreters of the divine law, and mediators between the eternal and the temporal. To understand the genesis of Freemasonry, its symbols, its ideals, its very reason for being, one must look not only to the Temple of Solomon or the Collegia of Rome, but beyond them, to the fire-lit sanctuaries and star-crowned towers of ancient Persia. The Magi emerged from the reforms of Zarathustra, or Zoroaster, a prophet whose life, though obscured by the mists of antiquity, is often placed between the 2nd and 1st millennia BCE. His revelation was not the invention of a new faith, but a purification of the primordial Aryan religion, which had already conceived the cosmos as a struggle between truth, Asha, and the lie, Druj, light and darkness, order and chaos. Ahura Mazda, the wise lord, was the source of all good. Angra Mainyu, the hostile spirit, was the source of corruption. Humanity's task was to align itself with Asha, the cosmic truth, and thereby become a conscious participant in the maintenance of the world's divine order. The Magi institutionalized this doctrine. They became the priestly caste of the Median and later Achaemenid empires, serving as astronomers, ritualists, and political advisors from the court of Cyrus the Great to that of Darius and Xerxes. Their fire temples, scattered from Bactria to Lydia, were not places of idol worship, but of metaphysical contemplation. At their heart burned the sacred flame, never extinguished, never sullied, symbolizing the boundless light from which all creation flows. This was not fire as substance, but fire as principle, the manifest presence of truth, illuminating and purifying all it touched. The Magi understood the universe as a vast and ordered structure governed by immutable laws. Their study of the stars was no mere curiosity. It was the deciphering of the divine script. Each star was a Yazata, a worthy one, embodying an aspect of Ahura Mazda's thought, and each planet traced a path that mirrored the unfolding of cosmic intention. From the Chaldeans, they absorbed mathematical astronomy. From their own Indo-Iranian inheritance, they retained the vision of a living, ensouled cosmos. In this synthesis lay the foundations of classical astrology, as it would later pass into Babylon, Hellenistic, and Islamic science. This cosmology carried profound ethical implications. To the Magian sage, the motion of the heavens was not merely predictive but prescriptive. The cosmos demonstrated order, and man, if he would be so wise, must order himself likewise. The Fravashi, the ideal self or guardian spirit, was the model toward which each man strove, and the initiate's path consisted of purifications and ordeals intended to align the lower nature with the higher. Through discipline, contemplation, and service, the Magus sought not to dominate nature, but to participate in its harmony. It is here, in the ethical and symbolic core of Magian doctrine, that we find the germ of what would millennia later become the Masonic ideal. Freemasonry, too, conceives of the universe as a temple governed by law, wherein man's task is to bring himself into the consonance with the grand architect's design. Its rituals speak of the victory of light over darkness, of truth over error, and of gradual ascent of the soul through stages of purification and enlightenment. The initiate, like the Magian Freemasonry, is called to refine the rough ashlar of his nature into the perfect stone fit for the celestial edifice. The architectural symbolism of Masonry, its pillars, its orientation to the cardinal points, its starry canopy, has unmistakable antecedents in Magian temple design. The fire altars of ancient Media were constructed on elevated platforms often aligned with solstitial or equinoctial risings, the sacred flames serving as the terrestrial reflection of the cosmic fire above. The celestial vault painted upon the lodge ceiling is but a descendant of the Magi's practice of reading the heavens as the temple's true roof. Even the blazing star at the center of the Masonic Lodge recalls the Magian reference for Tistria, or Sirius, the divine herald of rain and fertility, or for the eternal light of the pole star, fixed unerring and center amid the whirling host. The question inevitably arises, by what historical channels might Magian doctrine have flowed into the streams that nourished Masonry? The answer is complex, but discernible. The first great transmission occurred during the Persian imperial period. The Achaemenids ruled not only Persia, but also Mesopotamia and Anatolia and the Levant. It was under their aegis that the Hebrew exiles returned from Babylon to build the Second Temple, an event that left unmistakable traces of Persian religious influence upon Judaism. The dualism of the light and darkness in post-exilic texts, the development of angelology, and even the apocalyptic vision of cosmic struggle all bear Magian fingerprints. Through Judaism, these ideas passed into early Christianity, which adopted not only the terminology of light and darkness, but also the conception of a cosmic moral order upheld by the Logos. The very word Magi enters the Christian tradition through the Gospel of Matthew, where it is Magian sages, not Jewish priests or Roman augurs, who first recognize and pay homage to the incarnate light in Bethlehem. Later transmissions occurred through Hellenistic syncretism, the Greeks encountering Zoroastrianism in the eastward campaigns of Alexander associated the Magi with their own mysteries. Plato's conception of the good as the source of all being, the Stoic notion of a rational cosmic fire or the pneuma, and the Hermetic image of man as a microcosm reflecting the macrocosm all resonate with Magian metaphysics. The Neoplatonists of late antiquity in turn transmitted these doctrines into the intellectual bloodstream of medieval Christendom, where they mingled with Hebrew Kabbalah and Islamic falsafa. By the time operative Masonry began to assume a speculative form in the 17th and 18th centuries, these currents, Magian, Hebraic, Platonic, Hermetic, had long been interwoven. The builders of Gothic cathedrals were heirs to a lineage of thought that stretched back not merely to the Temple of Solomon, but beyond it, to the fire temples of ancient Iran. Symbols, as René Guénon observed, are the language of the primordial tradition. Across cultures and ages, they preserve truths that elude literal formulation. The Magi and the Masons, though separated by millennia, share a symbolic vocabulary that betrays a common origin. In Magian ritual, the underlying flames symbolize the eternal light and the presence of Asha. In Masonry, the great light, the divine spark within, is the guiding principle by which the initiate orders his life. Magian temples were often flanked by twin columns symbolizing the cosmic dualities of light and darkness, spirit and matter. The Masonic Boaz and Jachin stand as their descendants, representing the balance of opposing principles within the temple and within man. The Magi read the stars as the script of divine intelligence. Masonry places the blazing star at the heart of the lodge as an emblem of divine guidance and illumination. The Magian aspirant underwent successive purifications before becoming a Freemasonry. The Mason progresses through degrees, each marking a step in the ascent from ignorance to illumination. These are not coincidences, but echoes, distant, transmuted, and reinterpreted, yet recognizably born of a single source: the primordial quest to bring human life into harmony with cosmic order. Freemasonry has often described itself as a peculiar system of morality, veiled in allegory and illustrated by symbols. Too often, however, this is interpreted as a mere rhetorical flourish. In truth, it is a statement of lineage. The allegories are ancient, the symbols primordial. They belong to a perennial wisdom that has clothed itself in many garments. Zoroastrian in Persia, Mosaic in Israel, Platonic in Greece, Hermetic in Alexandria, and Masonic in the West. To recognize the Magian roots of Masonry is not to diminish in later expressions, but to deepen their significance. It is to understand that the craft is not an invention of the Enlightenment nor a relic of medieval guilds, but a living heir to a tradition as old as civilization itself. A tradition that has always taught that man's highest calling is to become a conscious participant in the cosmic order, a builder of harmony in the temple of the world. The Magi called this alignment Asha. The Greeks called it Logos. The medieval Christians called it the Ordo Divinus. Freemasonry calls it the work of the Grand Architect. Different names, one light. And in the same light, the first light, of which the Magi were guardians that continued to burn upon the altar of the lodge, beckoning every initiate to rise from the shadows and walk in harmony with the eternal. The chain of transmission is long and complex, yet its course is discernible to the patient eye. From the fire temples of ancient Persia to the star-vaulted lodges of the modern world, a single idea persists, that man's destiny is not to rule the cosmos, but to understand it, not to impose order, but to reflect it, not to build in stone alone, but to build within himself the temple of light. The Magi were its first custodians. The Freemasons are among its latest, and the flame, that undying symbol of Asha, still burns. There you have this eccentric and very interesting article on the Persian Magi and the roots of Freemasonry, how those connect back to it. So our thanks goes out to Brother Axel Suvari, who put this together and published it earlier this month. I loved this piece because it attempts to draw a connection from Freemasonry back to the Magi. And certainly there are practices within Freemasonry, symbols and iconography that can be traced to a number of different systems and civilizations that existed 1,000 years or more ago. Something I find wonderful in this is that it recognizes Masonry as the home of a modern teaching in this idea of order and rightness and becoming a better person and contributing to the welfare of the cosmic order. I think that's a great message. Anyway, if you want to learn more, I will put a link in the show notes to this article. You can explore their website a little more if you'd like to. They've got a ton of great articles that are out there, and we're a big fan of them here at this show. Want to say thank you to that website for allowing us to read some of these articles from time to time. That's it for this week. I want to thank our producers, fellows, contributors, and legacy partners one more time. If you are out there and you're thinking, hey, I want to help support this stuff, I want to be a part of Masonic education in this way, where I am helping to spread the word about Masonry and its kindred sciences to all those who are interested in looking into this, then head on over to our website, wcypodcast.com, click on support the show, check out the options. That's it for this week. We'll be back next week, and I've got an exclusive interview with John Crivoloni, award-winning author and Freemason. We're going to talk about all things truth, and we might even get into a little bit of his new book that's coming out soon, The American Bubble. Until next week, stay on the level. For Whence Came You, I'm Robert Johnson. Take care.
You've been listening to Whence Came You, a Masonic podcast featuring research papers and discussions related to Freemasonry with your host, Brother Robert Johnson. Be sure to join us for our next edition.
WCY Media.
Why, that beat me as not the